But there's some fun headphones within this category, and I got two of them right here. The Aeon Flow by MrSpeaker and the ModHouse Argon, which is a Fostex T50RP based mod. Totally different ends of the spectrum. We're going to break this down real quick. Okay, let's start with the very pretty, very sexy MrSpeaker Aeon Flow. Look at this. Automotive paint, shiny carbon fiber, incredibly soft and luscious leather pads here with this great shape that's the shape of an ear, real leather strap, nice little, anyway, whatever. Go watch lots of reviews of things. I kind of want to talk about how these two compare and sort of about closed back planars, which is kind of a weird category because most planars are open back, sort of taking advantage of that driver style and really being something that's a bit more sort of upper end, not a consumer grade, you know, typically a more expensive driver that's got a really interesting sound signature. So if you love planars but you are in a situation where you need a closed back because you want that sound oscillation, you know, or you're just trying to keep it quiet, just not bug your neighbors, etc. What do? Well, you go looking around and you find that there's not a ton of offerings. And so these are several years old now, and MrSpeaker has since changed names to Dan Clark Audio, and there's now an Aeon 2, and he actually did a deal with Drop not too long ago to do an open back version of the number 2 version. Anyway, these suckers, when new, and the version 2 of them retail for something like $900. Is a pretty high-end pair of headphones, so it seems a little unfair to be comparing it to, you know, the ModHouse, which is based on a $160 pair of headphones. But these are, you know, since the version 2 is out and the name change and everything, these have come down on the used market to be, you know, $500 or less. So with the add-on cost of the ModHouse ones, they're in the sort of similar territory, so I think they're worth kind of looking at together, even though they're sort of vastly different. Just to talk about sound very quickly, right, because that's why we have this stuff. It's not just for pretty automotive paint. When it comes to the sort of listening experience of these, when I got them, I gotta say I was kind of a little underwhelmed. They didn't really hit me. They didn't really rock my soul. I would hear little moments. I'd get like a little like, oh, I can hear that bow on that string, or I can hear that rasp of that trumpet, or there are little things that sort of almost clicked with me where I was like, there's something here. There's something really special here. And I listened to them against a couple of amps, a THX-based amp, a shit Jotunheim, a couple of tube amps, just a bunch of stuff. And when I got them on the tubes, they kind of got a little warmer and more interesting to me. But finally, what sort of made it click for me was turning on the high gain on a shit Jotunheim, so really giving them a ton of power. And you know, learn along with me. Maybe this is obvious to all you guys, but you know, it's not just about volume, it's about power. And even though I was never really turning the Jotunheim up that much on low gain, assuming like, oh, well, there's plenty of power here, I don't really need to turn this up more than a quarter volume knob to be ample listening volume. It wasn't really about that. It was about the kind of power that was being pushed to them. And once you kind of drive them a little harder, they really respond. And while they still have a relatively flat presentation and that everything's relatively even, you know, it's not a V-shaped sort of headphone. You're not getting a lot of bass, a lot of treble, Bose style. You're getting, everything's presented very evenly, which is fun if you want to really choose what you listen to, and if you want to really do a lot of sort of detail retrieval. I think they reward you in that. but I still don't think they're a super passion-inducing headphone. They're a little analog, a little clinical for me. They have a lot to offer, and I think they present a lot of different genres pretty fairly and pretty honestly. But for me, it just never got me excited. And I think they do a really great job with like mid and upper mid range. So horns, acoustic instruments, vocals. You can get a bunch of detail back that I think a lot of other headphones, especially closed back headphones, don't necessarily reward you with. Let's leave it there. They are interesting. Picking up a used pair for $400 or $500, I think you would not be disappointed, but I don't know. I mean, there's other things I might be more excited to recommend, but who cares what I think? All right, let's set those aside. Here we go. Now these are just a total different animal. So where you have the MrSpeaker that is just detail, fit, and finish, one man's vision, executed to a T. Whether you like that vision or not, it is wholly concepted and executed. This is a collaboration on top of a mishmash, on top of a mix-up with. This is a crazy pair of headphones. They basically, starting with a Fostex T50RP, which is a technically semi-closed back, although I don't think they really leak much sound, so I don't know that matters. Planar, that is, I guess it's good. It's got good bones, but it doesn't sound that exciting on its own. So it's a very popular mod base for mods, and you can do it. I can do it. Anyone can mod them, but there are a few companies out there that have really made an art form out of it. And of those, I think who sits at the top is ModHouse. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to every different mod, but from what I've experienced and what I've read, this is the kind of pinnacle of this space. And this guy's very much a mad scientist in there, 3D printing parts and messing with the drivers and adding straps and rewiring them to be balanced and doing all this stuff. And what I love about these is it's a collection of boutique contributors. So at the core you've got ModHouse messing with the drivers and adding this strap and everything, but then he's working with other players like ZMF for the pads, and I went ahead and opted for the Periap balanced cable. I'm going to do a whole nother video about balanced cables and Periap in particular, because I've got thoughts there. So subscribe and stay tuned for that one. He does some little aesthetic bits as well, like putting on these brushed black stainless stickers and printing these little name badges and stuff, but I don't care too much about that stuff. I care about what the resulting sound is of these, which is crazy and big and fun. I mean, if you are a bass head, you have to listen to a pair of these, because the bass is just out of control. I mean, it's not out of control, actually. It's kind of controlled, even though it's really giant, and sometimes it's a little boomy, but it's fun, and the bass is very, very good and very dynamic. The mid-ranges and the vocals sometimes sit a little further back than I would like, but they're there, and they're detailed, and they're interesting. And then the upper mids and the highs have a lot of articulation and are really quite dynamic. And this is another headphone, as many Planars, but for some reason, especially the closed back I've tried, that really needs power. It needs to be driven. You underdrive this thing, it's weak sauce. It's not going to deliver on what you've heard about how cool these Argons are. But you give it that oomph. You throw some high gain Jotunheim at it. You throw big 2-amp power at it. You give it that and man, it will reward you. you would think something like this that is so big and bassy, and you would think it might benefit from like a really smart, sophisticated, delicate amp, like something like a Monolith THX amp or something. But I didn't find that to be true. I thought it really loved just brutish power, and it still came forward with great detail and great expression. And there are other headphones that I think are like say some Hi-Fiman HE400s. Like, they're kind of warm, they're really fun and enjoyable, but if you give them something if you give them some power and a DAC driving that power that's a bit more sophisticated and detail oriented, the two is a match made in heaven. And that was my instinct with these at first, is like, oh, they're kind of like brutish and big and brassy, and like they're gonna need to be like tamed with something that's delicate. But no, they just give them a ton of power and then just sink into it. And these things are they encourage you to crank up the volume. They want you to just get in the music and enjoy. And yeah, you can probably tell I'm smiling while I talk about them. They're really fun. And was I smiling when I talked about the MrSpeakers? No. This is like, get out the pipe, put on the smoking jacket, adjust my glasses, and just it's just very fun. You know, these are mature, and they are great in that. And if you want, something that now on the used market I think is a kind of a bargain for the quality of the build and the sophistication of the sound, they're a real interesting and unique offering. If you want to just play and have fun and be silly and just rock out, these I can't really recommend enough. But there you go, 2 examples of a kind of weird and wacky category, the closed back planar headphone, sort of within striking distance of each other price wise if you went out and bought them today. The Argons are pretty hard to find used because when you go and you customize and you build them on his site, you are going to sit and wait for 12 weeks to receive them. I think I got mine in like 10, even though they said 12 weeks, so that's cool. Nice to under promise and over deliver. But there's not a ton in the user market. They do come up occasionally, but that's that. These guys are pretty plentiful in the user market right now because there's the version 2, and they're just an older headphone, and so you can go out there and get them. And most people are trying to sell them for like $550, but I think realistically their price has got to be pushed down just because of what's happened in the market. So they're probably a $450 headphone. So these guys configured with all the bells and trims. So if you went out and just bought a pair of Fostex T50 RPs, I think they're about 150, 160 bucks on Amazon. Once you've had the full ModHouse treatment, and this has had it all with the nice EMF pads and the Peri-app cable and the rewiring for balanced and the whole thing, they come out to just under 400 bucks. So there you have it, y'all. The bell is tolling for me. Gotta go. If you liked it, subscribe. I got more things on the way. If you didn't like it, leave me a comment. Share. Be well. This is Adrian, aka Signcraft, signing out.